Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Hey. We'll be learning today Mirz Hashem Daf Kuf Nun Beis Amid Aleph. We're continuing to learn halachos Yom Tov. We are in Siman Taf Kuf Chav Zayin. We begin today on the top line of Kuf Nun Beis Amid Aleph in the midst of the words of the Ramah in Sif Chaf. Of course, we're continuing to learn the halachos of eiruv tavshilin. So, very interesting halacha we have here. It says the Ramah, Umi shemis'aneh b'Yom Tov, somebody who is fasting on Yom Tov. Now, why somebody would be fasting on Yom Tov? Certainly it's not recommended to fast on Yom Tov. Maybe if we get a chance, we'll discuss that a little bit later. But in any case, somebody is fasting on Yom Tov. Now, if somebody is fasting on Yom Tov, then cooking is not a tzarech hayom for him. He's not going to eat. So cooking is not a tzarech hayom. So, Misha Mesana b'Yom Tov, if somebody is fasting on Yom Tov, also lavasha la'acherim, it is prohibited for him to go cook for other people. Afilu l'tzarech boy b'yom. We're not necessarily speaking right now in this Ramah about the halachah of eiruv tavshilin, about the halachah of Yom Tov that falls out on Erev Shabbos. We could be talking about any Yom Tov. Yom Tov fell out on Monday and Tuesday. Now, for some reason, this individual is fasting on Tuesday. He's fasting on Yom Tov Sheni of Yom Tov. Or he's fasting on Monday. He's fasting on Yom Tov Rishon. For him, he's not allowed to cook because the heter of cooking, the heter of bishul, of malacha on Yom Tov is only l'tzarech hayom. It's tzarech eichel nefesh. But there's no tzarech eichel nefesh here. You're not going to eat. So in that case, it's aser. You're not allowed to cook. Once it's aser, says the Ramah, a very interesting halacha. Asa lavasha la'acherim, just as he's not allowed to cook for himself, he's not allowed to cook for others. Afilu l'tzarech b'yom, even for Yom Tov purposes. He's not allowed to cook. Why? Tehevi kimisha lo hiniach eiruv she'eno mavasha la'acherim. Because he has the same status as a person who did not make an eiruv tavshilin when Yom Tov falls out on Erev Shabbos. What did we learn yesterday? We learned yesterday on Kuf Nun Aleph Amid Beis in Sif Chaf, the Mechaber told us, Mi shaloi erev, if somebody did not make an eiruv tavshilin when Yom Tov fell out on Erev Shabbos, kishem she'asa lavasha la'atzmai, just as he's not allowed to cook for himself, kach asa lavasha la'acherim. He's not allowed to cook for anybody else. For him, cooking from Yom Tov for Shabbos is aser because he didn't make an eiruv tavshilin. Once it's aser for him, he's not allowed to cook for himself. He's also not allowed to cook for somebody else. Even if that somebody else made his own eiruv tavshilin, he's not allowed to cook for him because for him, cooking is aser. So says the Ramah, what do we see from that halacha? We see from that halacha that if cooking is aser for you, then cooking is also aser for you to do for somebody else. If you're not allowed to cook for yourself, you're not allowed to cook for others. So therefore, says the Ramah, same thing over here. Forget eiruv tavshilin. If you're fasting on Yom Tov, then you're not allowed to cook for yourself because it's not tzarech eichel nefesh. And if it's also for you to cook for yourself, then it is also also for you to cook for somebody else. Very, very interesting halacha. Now he brings this down from the Maharivayil, and in the Maharivayil gives two reasons for this. One is the simple reason that we just gave, and that is, if something is also for you to do for yourself, it's also for you to do it for somebody else. But then he has another fascinating reason. We know that there's a concept on Yom Tov of chatzi lochem v'chatzi lashem. We learned it out from a pasuk, that on Yom Tov there's an inyan that you're supposed to arrange your day so that chatzi is lochem, half of the day is for you. What does for you mean? It means you have a beautiful Yom Tov Suda, things that are more, shall we say, gashmiistic or oriented. Now, of course, it's all done l'shem shamayim. It's all l'chvayid Yom Tov. I'm sorry, I normally never take the phone, but this is my Rebbe. Hello?
Hi, Shema.
Yeah.
Davey said he can't reach other one.
Okay, Shema, let me call you back because I'm in the middle of recording a share. I'll call you back in about a half an hour.
Wait, so should I call his number directly?
You can do that. Do you have his number?
No.
I will text it to you.
Thank you.
Bye. My pardon over here, please bear with me. You know that I would never do this, but this is for my Rebbe, the Reshiva, Reuben Feinstein. So I got to take a second over here. Bear with me for one moment. I just have to text him a quick phone number. 453-453-0966. 453-0966. Okay, so as we were saying, there's Chatzi Lashem, Chatzi Lochem, the Chatzi Loshem. So normally on a Yom Tov, we have hours of davening, that's Lashem. We spend some time learning, that's Lashem. So half of our day is dedicated to Hashem. It's dedicated to what's really essentially ruchniistic pursuits. And then there's Chatzi Lachem. There's a beautiful Yom Tov Suda. Maybe you take a nap. So there's Chatzi Lachem, Chatzi Lashem. Says the Marivayil, if somebody is fasting on Yom Tov, then he's not being Mekayim the Chatzi Lachem. If you're not being Mekayim the Chatzi Lachem, if you're not fulfilling the half that's supposed to be for you, then the Yom Tov turns into Kulai Lashem. If the Yom Tov turns into Kulai Lashem, then you can't be busy cooking, even if you're cooking for somebody else. A very fascinating Maharivayil. But in any case, that's the halachah that the Ramah says over here. Now let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah over here. Ois Katan Samech Hey. So the Ramah said, if somebody is fasting, so he's not allowed to cook for himself. Therefore, he's not allowed to cook for somebody else. What the Ramah wants to say over here is, the same way we say that a person who did not make an eiruv tavshilin is not allowed to cook when Yom Tov is eiruv Shabbos. He's not allowed to cook on Yom Tov for Shabbos purposes, afilu b'shvil acherim, and he's not allowed to do it even for other people who they themselves made an eiruv tavshilin. Kevan shasa lavasha b'shvil atzmai, since he's not allowed to cook for himself, he's not allowed to cook for others. Kain hu hadin b'Yom Tov gufa. The same halacha applies on Yom Tov itself when Yom Tov does not fall out on Erev Shabbos. Misha Misane, somebody who's fasting, da'asa lavashel b'shvil atzmai, so that it's also for him to cook for himself. Why? Kevan shein tzarich, because he doesn't need it. So it's not a tzarich echel nefesh. He's not going to eat. Memela lo yehuta lo lavashel gam b'shvil acherim. If he has no heter to cook for himself because it's not tzarich echel nefesh, he cannot cook for others either. Now, here's something very interesting. V'kosev HaMagen Avram. And the Magen Avram writes like this. Now, follow this. This is a little tricky. The Memela, it comes out from this halacha. Im ikla zeh b'Yom Tov hasamoch l'Shabbos. Let's say Yom Tov falls out on Thursday and Friday, and this individual is fasting on Friday. Okay, so Yom Tov fell out on Erev Shabbos, and he's fasting on Erev Shabbos. Ooh. Also, levashel ba'atzmai lechatchila al Shabbos av shaniach eruv. Now, he's fasting on Erev Shabbos, so he's not allowed to cook on Yom Tov, which is Erev Shabbos, because it's not tzarich echel nefesh. But he's not going to be fasting on Shabbos, so he still wants to use his Erev tavshilin, and he wants to put up a cholent, and he wants to put up a chicken soup on Erev Shabbos for Shabbos. He's not allowed to. You know why he's not allowed to? Very cute why he's not allowed to. Let's remember what we discussed yesterday. How does an eiruv tavshilin work? The reason an eiruv tavshilin works is because even according to Rabbah, if you remember we had this machlokes Rabbah and Rav Chisda, even according to Rabbah holds that normally cooking on Yom Tov for Shabbos would be an issa daraisa. You're not allowed to cook, you're not allowed to do hachana on Yom Tov for Shabbos, so it would be an issa daraisa. Erev tavshilin can't be matter an issa daraisa, so how does Erev tavshilin work? The reason Erev tavshilin works, according to Rabbi, is that what would normally be an issa daraisa becomes only an issa darabanan because of the svara of haylu miklai le archim. Since the possibility exists that guests will show up on Yom Tov, so it's true, I'm putting up a chicken soup now. Now is Yom Tov, Erev Shabbos, I'm putting up a chicken soup, but it's mutter because there's always a chance that guests will show up, and if guests show up on Yom Tov, I'll serve them the chicken soup on Yom Tov. So therefore, cooking the chicken soup is a little bit of tzarech Yom Tov. Since it's a little bit of tzarech Yom Tov, midaraisa it's mutter, it's only aser midrabanan. Why is it also midrabanan? Because if we're going to allow you to do what is essentially cooking on Yom Tov for Shabbos, you might come to cook on Yom Tov for Chayil. So fine. So it's only an Issa D'Rabbanan. Since it's only an Issa D'Rabbanan, the eiruv tavshilin is matter the Issa D'Rabbanan. But now let's try to apply this to this person. This person is fasting on Erev Shabbos. So there's no tzarech eichel nefesh for him to cook chicken soup for himself. He's not allowed to cook chicken soup for himself today because he's not eating today. Now, he's also not allowed to cook for other people. So that means that the svara of haylu miklai le archim doesn't apply to him because he's not allowed to cook for guests. Because he's not allowed to cook for himself. So he's not allowed to cook for guests. So then the svara of haylu miklai le archim doesn't apply to him. Ooh, if the svara of haylu miklai le archim doesn't apply to him, then for him, cooking today on Yom Tov of Erev Shabbos is an Issa D'Oraisa. It's not an Issa D'Rabbanan. Erev Tavshilin can't be matter in Issa D'Oraisa. So for this individual, there is no heter. The Erev Tavshilin cannot work for him. That's why the Magen Avram says, let's read it again inside. The first wide line here in the Mishnah Berurah. Because of Magen Avram, the Magen Avram writes, the Memela, based on this halachah of the Ramah, that if it's also for you to cook for yourself on Yom Tov, it's also for you to cook for others. Memela im ikla zeh b'Yom Tov asamach l'Shabbos. If Yom Tov falls out on Erev Shabbos and somebody is fasting on Erev Shabbos, also lavashel ba'atzmai lechatchila al Shabbos, he's not allowed to put up a chicken soup or a challah on that day of Yom Tov of Erev Shabbos when he's fasting, af shehin yach eiruv, even though he made an eiruv tavshilin, because the eiruv tavshilin can't work for him, because for him cooking today is an issa d'oraisa, not an issa d'rabbanan, because haylu miklai le archim doesn't apply to him. Aval, however, b'nei beisai oyacherim, there is a kula over here, which is, since he made an eiruv tavshilin, the other members of his household, or other people, a neighbor, they could come into the house and they could use his ingredients and they could cook for him. Even though we said yesterday that normally, if you don't have an eiruv tavshilin, you are also to cook and your food is also to be cooked. Remember, we said hu nesar v'kimchai et nesar. So normally, if somebody doesn't have an effective eiruv tavshilin, somebody can't come into his house and cook his ingredients. Over here, he has an eiruv tavshilin, just the eiruv tavshilin is not effective for him. Over here, the other members of his household could use, or a neighbor, could use his ingredients and they could cook for him. The ein kimchai nesar, because in this scenario, we do not say hu nesar v'kimchai nesar. Hayol v'hiniach eiruv tavshilin, because he did make an eiruv tavshilin. Okay, fascinating halachah. Vayin b'achrayim, nevertheless, despite everything that we've said over here, the Chavetz Chaim says you should take a look in the Achrayim. He brings down a Beis Meir, a Maimer Mordechai, Nahar Shalom. Shemefakfikim al ikar dinoi d'Ramah. They take issue on this entire halacha of the Ramah. They take issue with it, and they don't like this dimyon that the Ramah is making between the halacha that we learned yesterday and this halacha. That he's saying that you see that when a person is also to cook for himself because he doesn't have an eiruv tavshilin, he's not allowed to cook for somebody else. So too, this person who's fasting, it's also to cook for himself, he's not allowed to cook for others. Then mafakvik on this din. Valkena, therefore, b'Yom Tov asamach l'Shabbos, if you have a scenario where Yom Tov is on Erev Shabbos, im ein lo yacherim sheyavashlu ba'avuroi, if he does not have anybody else who can cook for him, he doesn't have family members to cook for him, he doesn't have a neighbor to cook for him, he's stuck on his own, he is allowed to go ahead and cook for himself. And similarly, isha mishareses. Let's say you have a live-in, you have a Yiddish live-in who works in your house, and she does the cooking in your house. Shemesana be Yom Tov, and for whatever reason she's fasting on Yom Tov, so this halacha of the Ramah would apply to her. Gam ken yechayla levashel l'tzarech balabayis, since she has an obligation to cook for the household where she works. We don't go with this Ramah. We're makel, and we allow her to cook for others, even though it's also for her to cook for herself. Okay. And again, this kula that I want to make sure I was clear. This kula that the Mishnah Berurah is saying is Va'al Kain b'Yom Tov hasamach l'Shabbos. We're not talking about her cooking for herself. Let's say Yom Tov was Monday and Tuesday, and she's fasting on Tuesday. It's also for her to cook, and it seems that it's also for her to cook for others. But if it's a question of Yom Tov hasamach l'Shabbos, so then he says over here that based on the eiruv tavshilin, she is allowed to do preparations for Shabbos. Okay, now we go to the Mechaber in Sif Chaf Aleph, second line. Im nizkar shaloi eiruv kaidem suda shachris. Let's say it's Yom Tov morning. Somebody comes home from shul, and it's erev Shabbos. So Yom Tov was Thursday and Friday. This fellow comes home Friday after davening, and his wife says, we have to remember to put up the cholent. And he says, I forgot to make an erev tavshilin. We don't have an erev tavshilin. And if you look in Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Samach Vav, the Mishnah Berurah points out right away, we're talking about a case where there is no Rav who went ahead and made an erev tavshilin and was mezakeh the erev tavshilin. He handed it off to somebody and was mezakeh for all of the people of the city to rely on if they forgot. So there is no erev tavshilin for this fellow to rely on. And he realizes, what am I going to do? I didn't make an erev tavshilin. And again, when is this happening? This is Yom Tov, erev Shabbos. He just came home from shul. He did not yet eat his Yom Tov Suda. So says the Mechaber, Im nizkar shelo erev. He remembers that he forgot to make an erev tavshilin, but he remembers kaidem Suda shachris. He remembers before the Yom Tov Suda in the morning. So there's an eitzah for him. Yavashel harbe b'kedera achas. He could go ahead. He has to put up food for his Yom Tov Suda, so he could go ahead and put up a nice big 12-quart chicken soup for his Yom Tov Suda, and v'yoser l'Shabbos. And now he will go ahead and he'll have this leftover for Shabbos. No problem. What he's doing is he's putting up a pot of soup for his Yom Tov Suda. Now, we learned earlier in Siman Tafkuf Gimel that when you cook for your Yom Tov Suda, you can make, even though you only need a bowl of soup for yourself and a bowl of soup for your wife, you could put up an 8-quart pot if you want. And we said the reason is really two reasons. One is that putting up a big pot, it's a tircha achas. You're only doing one tircha. And the tircha that you're doing is you're putting up a soup for Yom Tov. So it's very nice that it's a big pot and you're going to have leftover. But you're not doing a separate tircha for Yom Tov and an additional tircha for after Yom Tov. No, you're doing one tircha. You're putting up one pot of soup. You're allowed to do that even if you're going to have leftovers for the weekday. Over here, you're doing it for Shabbos. You're allowed to do it even if you're doing it for the weekday. Even if you say to yourself, I'm going to put up a big soup. We'll have leftovers for the rest of the week. You're allowed to do that because not only is it a tercha achas, but it's also that making a bigger pot gives you a richer, tastier soup, a richer, tastier stew. So that's the eitzah. The eitzah is put up a soup for your Yom Tov Suda and make a very big pot so you'll have leftover. That's the first thing. That's the halachah that the Mechaber says over here. Now, Haggah, says the Ramah, another halachah. V'hu adin, the same halachah applies similarly. Sheyuchal leilech miba'od yoim lecheder bener dolok lechapes eze davar. Let's say you also realize that I have a problem. I'm going to need a nair. I'm going to need a nair, a candle burning in the other room tonight, and now I don't have a way to light. So you know what? Light a nair now on Yom Tov. L'tzarech Yom Tov. Light a nair and go into that dark room and go look for something. You're looking for a book. You're looking for a sefer. You're looking for your slippers. Take the nair, go in, and then leave the nair over there, and the nair will be burning Friday night as well, so you'll have a nair. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut in Samach Zayin. And you'll leave the nair burning. The Chavetz Chaim goes on to tell you, not only are you allowed to do that, you could take the nair into the room. Now you need the nair on one side of the room to go look for your slippers. Don't think that you're mechuyev to leave the nair on that side of the room where you needed it l'tzarech Yom Tov. No, you could go ahead and you could put it down anywhere in the room. So you're looking on one side of the room for your slippers. But really tonight, Friday night, you're going to want the nair on the other side of the room on your night table so that you could go to sleep while you're saying Tehillim. So to read your Kriya Shema Alamita. So you could go ahead and you could put the nair down on the night table. Okay. Now let's go weiter in the Mechaber. So the Mechaber told you so far one halacha when it comes to if you didn't make an eiruv tavshilin, how could you have food for Shabbos? And what he said was, put up a big pot of food that you're going to use for Yom Tov and have the leftovers for Shabbos. Now the Mechaber is going to bring down another shita that's even a bigger kula. Says the Mechaber, v'yeshaimrim, there are those that say, and if you look in Berurah, this is brought down from the Rabbeinu Yerucham, v'yeshaimrim, there are those that say, afilu levashel kama kederois mutter. You could do even a bigger kula. What you could do is you could say, all right, listen, for the Yom Tov Suda, I was planning on having a vegetable soup and a roast. But now I don't have an eiruv tavshilin. I need food for Shabbos. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put up now a chicken soup. And I'm going to put up a meat stew. And I'm going to put up a potato kugel. How can I do this? I'm not allowed to cook from Yom Tov for Shabbos without an eiruv tavshilin. No, what I'm going to do is, now I'm going to serve a choice of soups. Do you want vegetable soup or do you want chicken soup? And even if nobody else wants chicken soup, I'm going to make sure I'm going to have a half a bowl of vegetable soup and a half a bowl of chicken soup. And I'm going to serve the roast, and I'm going to serve some stew. And I'm going to make sure I eat a little stew, and I'm going to make sure I eat a little bit of potato kugel. So what I'm doing is, in this kula, according to this shita, what you're allowed to do is you're allowed to put up food. Essentially, you're putting up this food expressly for Shabbos use. But the way you're being matir it is, since it's before you ate your Yom Tov Suda, you're going to make sure to taste a little bit of everything that you're putting up for Shabbos. You're going to make sure to taste a little bit of it all during your Yom Tov Suda. And that's the way you're going to be matir cooking it on Yom Tov. So that's what the Mechaber means here. V'yeshaimrim, there are those that say, ta'afilu levashel kama kederos, even to put up many pots of different foods, mutter is mutter, kevin shekaydam achiluhu, because you're doing it before the Yom Tov Suda, so you'll partake of all of these dishes that you're making now, which you're really making for Shabbos, but you'll partake from all of them during the Yom Tov Suda. V'hu sheyochal mikol echad ve'echad, as long as you eat from all of them. So again, what this shita is being matir is, you are going to have vegetable soup for your Yom Tov Suda. You could also now put up a chicken soup and eat some chicken soup by this Yom Tov Suda. You had a roast for your Yom Tov Suda. You could put up a meat stew and you could eat some meat stew at the Yom Tov Suda. And that's how you're being matir, doing it on Yom Tov for Shabbos. But what you cannot do is, let's say you have a vegetable soup for Yom Tov. You can't now go ahead and put up another vegetable soup for tonight, because that makes it very clear that that's a harama. Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah here. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Katan Samaches. V'yesharmim, there are those that say a bigger kula, ta'afilu, to put up additional pots of food where you're really making this food for Shabbos. You're even allowed to do that if it's before the Yom Tov Suda and you're going to partake from it during the Yom Tov Suda. Says the Chavetz Chaim, v'chein noihagin ha'olam lahakil k'dei azu. The Welt is noig to be makel like this opinion, like this kuladika opinion. V'ayil b'siman tavkov gimel sif aleph ba'haga uve Mishnah Berurah shenisbar sham den zeh ba'oirich. This is discussed in greater detail back in Siman tavkov gimel. Take a look at the Mishnah Berurah over there in Ois Katan Yud and Ois Katan Yud Aleph, where the Mishnah Berurah brings down two different shitas over here. The Mishnah Berurah brings down one sheet in Tavkov Gimel, where the Mechaber had said that you're allowed to fill up a pot, even if you only need, no, it's not going on that, I'm sorry. The Ramah said, you could put up a lot of different pots of food on Yom Tov Rishon, even if you're really putting up some of that food for the night meal of Yom Tov Sheni. So I don't need a kugel now on Yom Tov Rishon. I'm really putting up this kugel for Yom Tov Sheni. But you could put it up on Yom Tov Rishon if it's before the Yom Tov Rishon Suda, and you're going to taste from it during the Yom Tov Rishon Suda. Now, the Chavetz Chaim over there in Tavkov Gimel and Sivkot Yud Aleph brings down two different shittas. He really brings down the shittas, I'm sorry, in Ois Kot and Zion. He says, if you're putting up food for the Yom Tov Rishon Suda, and you don't need this kugel for the Yom Tov Rishon Suda at all, you're really putting it up for the Yom Tov Sheni night Suda. But you're going to eat some of the kugel during the Yom Tov Rishon Suda. Why? In order to be materit, which is the scenario that we're discussing over here. It's the same scenario. So then he says there's two different shittas. He says there's yesh oisrin. There are those that say that this is aser, a knesses agdola, a radvaz. But why? Because it's harama. But v'yesh matirin. But there are those, it brings down a Magen Avram, that's matter this, kevich al kol padam oichel k'tas bimena, v'gamu kaidem achilu, kudel kamei. Because you're doing it on Yom Tov Rishon before the Yom Tov Rishon Suda, and you're going to eat from it before the Yom Tov Rishon Suda. So that's essentially the same heter that we're bringing down over here. Now let's see Ois Kot and Samach Tes. The words of the Mechaber were that according to this shita, you could put up kama kederos. You could put up many pots of food before the Friday morning Suda, even though essentially you're doing it for Shabbos. Just you're going to be matir it by tasting it during the Yom Tov Suda on Friday. Says the Chavetz Chaim makes a very important point. Realize what the difference is between this Yesh Omrim and the first opinion that the Mechaber brought down. Ein Ritzayin Loimar, when the Mechaber brings down this Yesh Omrim, he does not mean to say Shemevashel minim chalukim bekama kederos l'tzarich Yom Tov, that what this person is doing is he's putting up a lot of different pots of food for the Yom Tov Suda. In other words, let's say this person was planning, like I said, on having a vegetable soup and a roast and a kugel. So, if what he's going to do is he's going to put up 2 pots of vegetable soup or a bigger pot. No, not 2 pots of vegetable soup. I'm sorry. He doesn't mean that, let's say the fellow was planning on having vegetable soup and chicken soup and roast and stew and potato kugel and laksha kugel. That's what he was planning on serving by his Yom Tov Suda. So when the Yesh Omrim says over here that you're allowed to put up kama kederos and then have extra from each one and serve it on Shabbos, that the first opinion would also agree to. That's so. Ein Ritzayin Loimar, in this Yesh Omrim, the Mechaber does not mean to say shemavashel minim chalukim bekama kederos. Excuse me. I had to lubricate my throat over there. He doesn't mean that he's putting up a lot of different dishes in a lot of different pots, but he's doing them all l'tzorich Yom Tov. He's doing them really all for his Yom Tov Suda. Umarbe b'chol achas, and now he's going to add more to each pot. So he's going to make a bigger vegetable soup, and a bigger chicken soup, and a bigger stew, and a bigger roast. But he was planning on serving all of that for his Yom Tov Suda. Just he's making more of it now, so he should have extras for Shabbos. That's not a chiddush. That's motor even according to the first opinion of the Mechaber over here in Sif Chaf Aleph. All you're doing is you're being marbe in whatever you're cooking for your Yom Tov Suda to have leftovers for Shabbos. That's motor even according to the first opinion. Ella, the chiddush of the second opinion is, Ella the Bala Haisif, with the second opinion, the Mechaber is coming to add on a new kula. Sha'afim einem avashloim ela b'shvil Shabbos. Over here, you're putting up an additional chicken soup, not at all for your Yom Tov Suda. You're putting up a chicken soup really expressly for the Friday night Suda. And the only thing that you're doing is, how are you allowed to put up the chicken soup now? So in order to be matir you to put up the chicken soup, you're going to eat a little chicken soup during your Yom Tov Suda. Gam kein shari. So that's the heter, that's the kula that the second opinion is adding on. The first opinion was just saying a very simple kula, which we really saw very clearly in Siman Tov Gimel. If you're making chicken soup for your Yom Tov Suda, you want to make a bigger chicken soup and have leftovers for Shabbos, geges and hate. That you're allowed to do. It's a tercha achas, and it makes a richer chicken soup. So that you're allowed to do. You're having chicken soup and vegetable soup for your Yom Tov Suda, so you want to make a bigger chicken soup and a bigger vegetable soup, have leftovers for Shabbos. Even the first opinion holds you're allowed to do that. Because what you're doing is you're cooking for Yom Tov. You're just having extras for Shabbos. The additional cool of the second opinion is, I wasn't going to have chicken soup for the Yom Tov Suda at all. Now I'm cooking a chicken soup for Shabbos. And I'm just being moderate by tasting a little bit during the Yom Tov Suda. That's the bigger kula of the second opinion. Ice cotton ayin mutter. This is permissible according to the second opinion. However, this is only mutter if the dishes that you're making over here are different dishes. The elavachi, if what you're going to do is you're going to put up another 3 pots of cholent, the elavachi minkar ha'arama. Again, let's say you were going to have a vegetable soup for your Yom Tov Suda. Now you're going to put up another pot of vegetable soup or another 2 pots of vegetable soups. That's very clear that you're only doing it for Shabbos. Very nice that you're going to taste a little bit from this pot and a little bit from this pot. Now it's very clear that what you're doing is only a harama. You don't need more vegetable soup. You don't need another pot of vegetable soup for your Yom Tov Suda. So it's very clear that you're only putting it up for Shabbos. That you're not allowed to do, even according to the second opinion. Ais Katnayin Aleph, V'hu sheyoichal. When is this mutter? The Mechaber said this is mutter if you taka eat from the foods that you're putting up. So yes, you could put up a chicken soup for Friday night, if you're doing it before your Friday day Suda, as long as you eat some of it for your Yom Tov day Suda. So now, I got away with it because I put it up before my Friday day Suda, and I'm going to eat some of it for my Friday day Suda, and the leftovers will be for Shabbos. But if you put up a chicken soup for your Friday day Suda and then you never eat from it, so then it's very clear that you're making a harama, that would be also. Kosav Taz, the Taz says, Tahainu lechatchila, that this hakpada is really only a hakpada lechatchila. Lechatchila, you have to make sure that you eat from the chicken soup by the Friday day Suda. Avalim eiruv shaloi achal klal mimin echad. Let's say you went ahead and you did this eitzah. You went ahead and you put up a pot of chicken soup. You went ahead and you put up a beef stew, all for Shabbos. You went and you put up a potato kugel, all for Shabbos. And you were thinking, I'm doing this for Shabbos, but I'm going to serve from everything by the Friday day Suda. That's why it's going to be mutter. Then what happens? Your wife Taka serves, some of the vegetable soup and some of the chicken soup, and you eat a little chicken soup. She serves the roast and the meat stew, and you make sure to eat a little meat stew. But then when she serves the side dishes, she serves the lakshan kugel that she made for the Yom Tov day Suda, and she forgets to serve the potato kugel that was really made for the Friday night Suda. So now it comes out, you never ate from the potato kugel. So the Taz says, B'di'evet, im eiruv shalayachal klal mimin echad. If it turns out that you never ate from one of the things that you prepared using this kunz, so it turns out that you never ate from the potato kugel, einoi asur l'Shabbos, it's still not forbidden for use on Shabbos. You're still allowed to eat that potato kugel on Shabbos. Because when you made the potato kugel, you had in mind that you were going to eat it. So when you made the potato kugel, you had a heter to make the potato kugel. You made the potato kugel Friday morning before the Yom Tov Suda, al das, that I'm going to eat some of that potato kugel as part of my Friday day Suda. So when you did it, it was mutter. Okay, you forgot to serve it. But that doesn't make it now asur l'mafreya. That's what the Taz says. But the Beis Meir cholik al zeh, the Beis Meir disagrees with this Taz. He says, the kevin the ikar bishuloi hu l'tzarech machar. Since, like we've said until now, we all know that in reality you made this potato kugel for Shabbos. You didn't really make this potato kugel for Yom Tov. Ve'ein tzarech liYom Tov. It really wasn't necessary for Yom Tov. V'chol ha'heter, and the only reason you had a heter to do this at all was rak masha al kolpanam oichel mimenu ktsas b'Yom Tov, was based on the idea that you were going to eat some of it on Yom Tov. Dal yidei zeh lo yihaveh haramani hanikeres. That's what made that you're not clearly doing a harama. If not for the fact that you were going to eat some of the potato kugel, we would never have been matir this. If you were going to make the potato kugel, take it out of the oven and leave it on the island in the kitchen to cool off, everybody looks and says, what's that potato kugel for? It's clearly for Shabbos, and you don't have an eiruv tavshilin. You're not allowed to do this. So the only reason we were matir it is because you were actually going to eat some of it. So the Beis Meir says, if after all of this you don't eat from it, so then now the harama is obvious to everybody. Because now it's very clear that all the cooking that you did was really only for Shabbos. So the Beis Meir disagrees with the kula of the Taz. And the Chavetz Chaim says that it appears to him that you should rule stringently. Many achrayim hold the halacha really follows the first opinion of the mechaber. And in the first opinion on the mechaber was never matter you to go ahead and make the chicken soup and make the beef stew and make the potato kugel. According to the first opinion of the mechaber, all you were allowed to do was you were making a vegetable soup for Yom Tov. You could make a bigger pot of vegetable soup and have the vegetable soup left over for Shabbos. But you want to make a chicken soup? According to the first opinion of the mechaber, it was never mutter for you to make the chicken soup. So many achrayim paskin like the first sheet of the mechaber. They don't paskin like the kula of the second sheet at all. They paskin like the first shita that you were only allowed to add to the cooking that really was litzarich Yom Tov. Just you could make more. Gam b'shvil Shabbos, to have extra for Shabbos. But the Welt is noyeg like the kula of the second shita. So therefore, says the Chavetz Chaim, al kol panim ein lohisav kula al kula. Now you want to make a double kula. Now you want to paskin like the second shita of the mechaber, that you could go ahead and put up a chicken soup, and you want to add on a kula to that, and you want to say, even if I neglected to serve the chicken soup, I should be able to eat the chicken soup on Shabbos. That, the Chavetz Chaim says already, now you're going a double kula he doesn't like, and he says, therefore you should rule stringently, and b'di'evet, if you forgot to serve that food that you made for Shabbos, you should not eat it. Okay. I see we're going a little bit long here, but I want to continue. I want to make sure to at least finish this page. Okay, let's go to Sif Chav Beis. Im nizkar b'Yom Tov Rishon shaloi eiruv. Let's say Yom Tov was Thursday and Friday, and now you forgot to make an eiruv tavshilin. And when do you remember? You remember on Thursday. Now remember, even in a perfect scenario, when Yom Tov is Thursday and Friday, and you did make an eiruv tavshilin, you're not allowed to put up your cholent for Shabbos on Thursday. Remember, we said you're only allowed to do preparations for Shabbos on Friday, not on Thursday. So now, Yom Tov is Thursday and Friday, and on Thursday you're schmoozing with your wife, and your wife says, wow, what a crazy Erev Yom Tov it was. And you say, yeah, I was running around doing this, running around. Oh, good heavens, I forgot to make an Erev Tavshilin. So you remember on Yom Tov Rishon that you did not make an Erev Tavshilin. Im nizkar b'Yom Tov Rishon shaloi eiruv. Im hu b'Yom Tov shel Rosh Hashanah. If we're talking about Rosh Hashanah, where Rosh Hashanah was a 3-day Yom Tov, Thursday and Friday, and then you had Shabbos. Eina yachal la'arev al tanai. Over here you don't have an eitzah because you cannot make an erev al tanai. Now let's read further in the mechaber so that we understand what this erev al tanai would be. Avalim hu b'Yom Tov shel golius. But if it's a normal 3-day Yom Tov, if it's, let's say, Sukkos, fell out on Thursday and Friday, so now it's Yom Tov, Friday's Yom Tov Sheni Shel Golius, Yachal le'erev b'tanai. If you remember on Thursday that you did not make an Erev Tavshilin, you could make an Erev Tavshilin now on the first day of Yom Tov by making it al Tanai. What's the Tanai? What you say is like this. Im hayom kodesh. If today, the first day of Yom Tov, is the real day of Yom Tov, so today is kodesh, so then guess what? Eini tzarich la'arev. I don't need an Erev Tavshilin. Because today, Thursday, is the real day of Yom Tov. Tomorrow is really a weekday. So if tomorrow's a weekday, what do I need an Erev Tavshilin for? I could cook on Friday the same way I cook on Friday for Shabbos all year round. Friday's a regular weekday. And if, however, today, Thursday, is really not Yom Tov, and really tomorrow, Friday, is Yom Tov, so then today is Chol. So then I'm allowed to make an Erev Tavshilin today. Today is really Erev Yom Tov. So be'eruv zeh, so I'm going to make an eiruv now on Thursday, and with this eiruv, yehei sharlon la'afuye lavashule, it should be mutter for me to bake and to cook, like the regular nusach of the Bahadain. Ulamachar ain't tzarich lemer klum. And then tomorrow on Friday, he doesn't say anything. Tomorrow he could cook. In essence, his Tanai is, if today, the first day of Yom Tov, is really Kiddush, is really Yom Tov, so then I don't need an Erev Tavshilin tomorrow. Tomorrow's a weekday. If today is really a weekday, so then today is Erev Yom Tov. So then I'm making an Erev Tavshilin today to allow me to cook for tomorrow. Okay. But if it's 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, this doesn't work. Because like we've said many times, on 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, you can't make such a Tanai. Because on 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, we don't look at it as a Sfeika D'Yoma. We don't look at the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. Maybe the first day is Kodesh and the second day is Chayil. Maybe the second day is Kodesh and the first day is Chayil. No. On Rosh Hashanah, we look at both days of Rosh Hashanah as a Vadai. Okay. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ice Cotton Ayin Beis. Ein Yachala Araval tonight. But the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, you can't make an Araval tonight. Lefi Shnei Yomim Shel Rosh Hashanah Hem Kiyam Echad Aruch. Because we always look at the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah as a Kedusha Arichta. It's Yom Echada. It's all one extended day of Kedusha. V'loi mishum Sveika, Kishar Shtei Yom Tov Shel Golius. We don't look at it as being a Sveika D'Yoma. Okay. Now, Ayin Gimel, the Mechaber said that a regular 2 days, we make the Erev al Tanai, right? And we say that if Thursday, Yom Tov Rishon, is really Kodesh, and tomorrow, Erev Shabbos, is a day of Chayil, then Eini Tzarech La'arev, Ice Cut 9 Gimel. I don't need an Erev. Tahalamachar Yeh Yom Chayil, because tomorrow, Friday, Erev Shabbos, is really a weekday. Umemeli He Mutter Lavashel. So, it's Mutter to cook. I don't need an Erev Tavshilin. Ice Cut 9 Daled. When you make the Erev al Tanai, you say, Be'erev Zeh Yehei Shara. It should be mutter for me to cook. Now, the Chavetz Chaim says, Umevarech Betchila. When you make this Erev Tavshilin, you're gonna make a bracha. So now let's just think into this for a second. So what are you doing over here? You forgot to make the Erev Tavshilin on Wednesday that was Erev Yom Tov. You remembered about it on Thursday, which is Yom Tov Rishon. You're making an Erev now on Thursday at Yom Tov Rishon, but you're making it b'Tanai. What's the Tanai? The Tanai is that if today is Kodesh and tomorrow is Chayil, then this is not really an Erev. Because I don't need an Erev. Because tomorrow is Chayil. If today is Chayil and tomorrow is Kodesh, then I do need the Erev. Because tomorrow is Kodesh and I'm not allowed to cook and bake tomorrow for Shabbos. But then today, Thursday, is really Erev Yom Tov, so I can make an Erev Tavshilin now. So what does it mean? It means that this Erev Tavshilin that you're making based on a suffix. I don't know if I need this Erev Tavshilin or not. And yet the Chavetz Chaim says, Umavarech Betchila. He brings down from the Magen Avram that you should make a bracha when you make this Erev Tavshilin. Now why? We always say suffix brachas lahakal. So why are we making a bracha over here? So I'm not going to read the footnote inside because we're already going long. But if you take a look at footnote number 80, he brings down over there the reason is because essentially, Erev Tavshilin is always a suffix. Because this is not a chiddush that in this case we have a Sveika D'Yoma. We always have a Sveika D'Yoma. So whenever Yom Tov is Thursday and Friday of 2 Yomim Tovim Shel Golius, we always have a Sveika D'Yoma. We never know. And not only that, by us, that we're B'ki and B'kfiyah D'Yarcha, we know that always the first day is the Iker and the second day is not. So usually the second day really is Chayil. So whenever we make an Erev Tavshilin on Wednesday, we're dealing with this same suffix. We never know if we really need the Erev Tavshilin, right? Maybe always Friday is really Chayil and we don't need an Erev Tavshilin. And yet, we always make an Erev with a bracha. So apparently the Takanas Chachamim over here was that we make a bracha on an Erev Tavshilin even though it's always a suffix. Very interesting. Okay. However, you go further in this Mishnah Berurah is cut nine daled. But b'chedusha Rabbi Akiva Eger hevi b'shem Sefer Lechem Starim de'en levarech. The Rabbi Akiva Eger brings down from this Sefer Lechem Starim that not to make a bracha. V'chein kasav b'shita mikubetzes, And so we see in the Shita Mekubetzes. And since we're already quite long in the shir, I hope to get a little bit further, but we're going to stop over here. So we'll pick up tomorrow near the end of Sif Chaf Beis by the V'yesh Oimrim, 2 lines from the bottom. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The schus of limud HaTorah should stand everyone in good stead in these troubling times. The Rebbe Hashem should send Yeshuas and Refuas and Parnasa to all those in need. The Rebbe Hashem should and always does provide for everyone. And we should be zeichet together b'simcha to see the Geula Shlema b'meher v'yameinu. Be well.